The BoG's financial report 2022 makes it's actually their fraud report, right? It makes for very interesting reading, and it kind of provides an interesting outlook, or it paints an interesting picture looking at all the things we've been seeing, especially this week. So this week we've had the BoG again talking about 97 unapproved loan platforms or apps or groups or whatever. And then there are stories of bank officials engaged in one alleged crime or the other. So, there's a talk of 1.2 million CDs being embezzled by a gentleman who's working in a bank. And then yesterday, I think Godfred, it was on one of the papers we reviewed this morning, that a lady has been jailed.
Yeah.
Yes, I think 8 years or so for essentially misbehaving with people's money. So when you go through the BoG fraud, they call it banks, SDIs, and PSP's fraud report, and is a review of various attempted or successful fraudulent activities recorded by Ghana's banking institutions, specialized deposit-taking institutions, and payment service providers, and it covers January 1 to December 31, 2022. So at least the Bank of Ghana does have a way of counting, measuring, tracking some of these incidents. And in terms of value, they really, really cost the state a whole lot. So, for example, it says if you look at, payment platforms, for example, they mention that the loss of fraud value reported on these payment platforms about 27 million in 2022, and it goes on and on and on, thousands and thousands and thousands of fraud cases. And I think the Finder also has done a story highlighting some of these numbers. Richard, I don't know if you can help us with some of those details.
So if you go to the Finder's front page story for this morning, a story done by Elvis Dako, our good friend, he says that the total money criminals, including staff of financial institutions, stole from banks. So basically talking about the total money that criminals stole from banks. And you're talking about specialized deposit-taking institutions as well as payment service providers in the year 2022. That's last year. That amount to some 82 million Ghana cedis in all. And according to him, this figure comprises 56 million Ghana cedis, which was stolen from banks and SDIs, and 26 million Ghana cedis, which was stolen from mobile money, which falls in the category of PSPs. Now, the story continues to say that this means that some 56 million SDIs and banks represents. Okay, well, I mean, basically, it's trying to suggest that the 56 million that apparently were stolen or that was stolen came in from SDIs and banks, and it represents 68%, while the 26 million stolen from mobile money accounts represent some 32%. Now, the story continues to say that the details of this particular matter are contained in the Bank of Ghana's fraud report on banks, specialized deposit taking institutions, and payment service providers. And this report is a definitive overview of various attempted and or successful fraudulent activities recorded by Ghana's banking institutions, specialized deposit-taking institutions, and payment service providers. Now, it represents the industry position for the period January 2021 to December 2022. Now, it goes on to tell us that the criminals stole approximately 56 million Ghana cedis from the financial system in 2022, compared to approximately 61 million Ghana cedis in 2021. So, if you look at the figures, it would mean that if they stole 56 million the year before, and last year they got the year before they took 61 million, and the year after, which is last year, they got 56 million. Then there's some reduction of a sort, and this shows a 7.88 decrease from 2021. And it goes on to provide some other details. I mean, but what is clear is that there's a lot happening within the banking space, and there has got to be some vigilance across the board to ensure that depositors' money are safe, to ensure that people have faith in the banking system, to ensure that when people take their money to the bank, they can go home and sleep. That look, the the person working in the banking system does not take their money. But what it also means is that a lot of due diligence has got to be done on the backgrounds of people who are working in the various banks. Because, look, seeing money every day sometimes can be tempting. And when you see the money every day and you assume that nobody is watching, and inherently you have a culture of, you know, should I call it taking things, little things, and you find yourself in a space where there is very little monitoring of what you do, ultimately you might lead yourself into taking little money at first, bigger amount second time, and then the biggest possible amount you could command subsequently. So it is an issue that should be looked at closely, Nathan.
So yeah, it's like I said, it's just against the backdrop of all these stories we've heard this week. So yesterday we were talking about, for example, the loan apps and all, and then like I said, this week we've had this 1.2 million CD thing, and then the lady jailed, you know.
And you know, Nathan, I mean, if you look at the numbers are crazy. So
The numbers
in
are
all,
crazy.
some 15,164 fraud incidents have been recorded. And then you also had 12,166 mobile money fraud cases reported.
12,000 mobile money related cases.
Exactly. Now that's deep. And then you also had 2,998 cases of attempted fraud within the banking system also recorded. And then you had 188 bank staff involved. So if you take the population of banks in the country and you do a quick math, first of all, you have to determine how many bankers we do have in this country, or how many people are working within the banking industry. But the fact is, we are told that 188 of the staff working in these banks actually carried out or attempted the crime or offense that we're talking about.
Even though, according to the report, it says that there's a decline in the level of staff involvement, but it's still quite high, right? Because 2021, you had 53.46% of bank staff getting involved, right, in these fraud cases. So that's 53 or almost 54%. And then in 2022, the number went down to about 47, 48%. But the point is that they are still
very high.
Yeah, still quite high.
Yes, that's right. And then you had 33 million stolen through forgery and manipulation of documents. So, some people who should be working on your documents. So perhaps you send them a check that they should clear a certain amount, or they should release a certain amount, and the figure is altered, or they have manipulated the system as to release an amount in excess of what would have been ordered, or something that you did not even order as a customer at all. So you did not issue the instruction, and yet someone uses your credentials, your details to take money out of the system. 33 million Ghana cedis. That's a lot of money.
That is.
Then you also have 7 million Ghana cedis stolen through fraudulent withdrawals. So these are withdrawals made, of course, without the the express instructions of the owner of the account. 7 million Ghana cedis stolen as a result of that. Then you have 5.1 million Ghana cedis stolen through check fraud. So as I was saying earlier, manipulating the system, fraud, checks that belongs to maybe a customer or something.
And the report says most of the cases recorded were issues of cloned checks.
Yes.
Cloned checks.
Then you also have 4.3 million Ghana cedis lost through cyber email fraud. It's another area that is emerging. That people can have access to your email details, send instructions. Sometimes you can ask a bank to carry out a transaction on your behalf, even where you are not physically within the banking space.
Yeah.
So perhaps, let's say for instance, when I was in outside the country, maybe I needed some money to pay my fees. So then the money is in my account. Then I send an instruction to my handler, who they call
A relationship
a
manager.
relationship manager. What he does is he sees the email, is able to authenticate it and say, okay, yes, this email is actually coming from you, blah blah blah, and then the instructions are carried out. What we are told here is that people are using the email system design to make life easier for people who are
Yep.
either in the north or here in the south or somewhere outside the country. They are using it for their own purpose, and that they've been able to steal 4.3 million Ghana cedis through email fraud, cyber email fraud.
Yeah, the other part is that they can use malicious emails to trick recipients into giving up sensitive information, such as bank accounts and passwords and all. And these unscrupulous persons jump on those details.
Yeah, so sometimes what they do is that, so if they say the Nathan Bank, right? So nathanbank@gmail.com. So what you do is to set up an email account which has Nathan, you write it Nathan, right? So
Nathan.
that's right. So someone can then cleverly insert another N at the end of your name. So it is not Nathan strictly speaking. It is Nathan. If you
With
understand.
two ends.
two
And sometimes
So
people can
you
overlook
are in a hurry. So of course, I mean, you are moron in a hurry, with the greatest respect. If you look at it, you assume that it's coming in from your bank. So quickly they say, oh, someone attempted to do ABCD with your account. So you should key in ABC details, so that the moment you do that, you have provided your information. And that is used to carry out fraud, which fraud will lead to you losing money as a result. Then we had 3.9 million Ghana cedis stolen through cash theft or cash suppression. Then we have cash theft. Sometimes you give the money to them, like, so you go to another bank, withdraw money, right? Sometimes we don't even count the money, because look, why would you stand there and be counting the money? The man told you, look at the counting machine. So you assume that, like, everything is correct. Meanwhile, when he was handing it over to you, either he suppressed the amount or he didn't give you the full thing, right? Then you also go to the next bank, because you took the money from bank A
and you want to deposit in bank B.
Or you actually even counted the money for yourself. Then you took it to the other bank. So you give it to them. You realize that the man says that, okay, 2 notes are missing. A lot of things happening in that space, leading to people losing money. Then there's also a section that deals with what? Money lost to impersonation. Someone behaving or pretending to be Nathan, when in fact the person, what do you call it, was not, or is not Nathan. Sometimes it happens to people who are old. So for instance, you have your driver who you use to carry out your rounds for you. You give him a checkbook, and then you tell him that because you are not well, you cannot sign your signature. You ask him that, okay, he should do some inscriptions on the checkbook, take it and buy ABCD groceries for you, do this and that, and run errands for you. Sometimes people take up these things and go and do all kinds of things with it. They are stealing money in the name of their bosses. They are stealing money in the name of their fathers. In fact, sometimes your own daughter or your own child, your own son will do this. Sometimes your husband, sometimes your wife, sometimes your niece, somebody you are looking after. They carry out these things. Then you have someone to some amount lost. This is 261,710 Ghana cedis lost through burglary. As for this one, you go into the banks and steal money. And then also lost to remittances. We had 6,560 Ghana cedis, and another amount, a measly amount of 25,620 Ghana cedis lost to other types of financial fraud.
So listeners, those are just the highlights of the Bank of Ghana's fraud report. We just felt, like we're just sharing some of these numbers, just to let you know that things are happening. If you are reading the news and you hear stories of bank officials misbehaving or getting arrested or facing the law for one act or the other. Just know that it's part of a larger number of incidents that happen very regularly in the banks. And the Bank of Ghana is highlighting that there's a lot they will have to do as a regulator to ensure that people's monies are kept and kept well.
Yeah, let me just mention quickly that under banking law, if it is determined that you, Nathan, you didn't order the transactions, your money is safe, right? If say they stole 100,000 Ghana cedis out of your account, you had nothing to do with it. You didn't order it. You did not collude with another person to do that. You will take that money from the bank. It is for the bank to deal with whoever is responsible. Sometimes, what is clear, I mean, reading banking law here in Ghana and in the UK and from other jurisdictions, the banks don't report it publicly, right?
Okay.
They take internal steps to deal with the person because it may rub off the brand badly.
Of course, then it affects
because the question is,
in the bank.
what was the due diligence report written on the person coming to work with the bank? In other jurisdictions, if you want to go and work with the bank is not interviewing you by itself. What they do is they engage a third-party due diligence company who would ask you to submit your details. You go and submit your details, and they will do a crawling check. Go through your social media posts. They go to your school, find out who you are. They will speak to the police. They will write a due diligence report from the police on you. They will speak to anybody people who are connected to you so intimately as to establish the kind of person we are talking about, whether he is fit for purpose and whether he should work in a banking institution. The question is whether our people are trying hard to do some of these things in Ghana. I don't know of any due diligence institution properly so called.
Well, like you're saying, maybe they deal with these things internally. We never know. But the Bank of Ghana
has it helped? I think in Ghana, naming and shaming is a sure way to stop some of these things. And can you imagine? This is the Bank of Ghana's own report official. It doesn't mention even the name of one bank.
I don't want to.
Well, I see the negative side of it, but there could be positive sides to it.
Yeah.
Because what would motivate one branded bank to do more in terms of securing their customers and safeguarding their space that they occupy? Because they know that it happens, it will be concealed. We use internal means, and then the thieves are always plotting and looking for better ways to upstage the banks, and this is what we see. And if we start mentioning, there's one that's been all over the place in the last 1 week.
Yeah.
About a gentleman who has been, pilfering small, up to a tune of 1.2 million. Haven't you read it?
Oh, we have
Did
read
you
it.
hear the name of the bank?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
The story doesn't have the name of the bank.
Well, okay.
You understand? So what caution are you throwing out there for who to be careful of which bank?
So you would have wanted a naming.
Of course. So that I know that this particular bank, if you lose guard, somebody inside there will deal with your money. But one bank or some banks have been very particular about these occurrences and have minimized near zero, and other banks have lost their guard. Okay, and we try and make the whole thing nice to the extent that to the extent that it affects the ones who have done better.
I see.
So Bank A does a good job at if you like, making it not attractive in their bank for people to steal. Bank B doesn't do a good job. Now it comes to affect the entire banking sector, and mostly the commercial banks are the ones suffering from this because of the frequency of activity. And it keeps this thing. There's nothing new about it. It's been going on and on and on, but the volumes and the bravado with which people are stealing now, it's like one of the African movies.
But Samuel, you've been operating in management for all these years. Is it possible to spot a criminal from afar when you're recruiting? How do you deal with things
Oh,
like that?
criminal. That's
Or potential
Wrong.
criminal.
Or people with questionable conduct.
yeah, that's
a
more like
more
it.
appropriate
You can always do that. But the thing is that you see in this environment of banking and other related industries, you don't you have to be careful because it's normally a network.
Okay.
You hardly ever get one person all alone by themselves doing it. And that's why at times they put the spotlight on you and wait for a while so they can, capture the footprint of your network. But in engaging people, there are times that there will be red flags which would now cause you to be on the lookout. There are times that we get it wrong, but more often than not, we get it right.
Anyway,
And you know
we'll
something?
We'll see what happens.
There's also a way, when you have an account with a bank, it is always safer to be checking in every now and then, right? If there's no activity on your bank for some time, your bank account,
Your bank account, yes.
There's the risk that a worker within the banking system who is minded to commit a crime or tempted to will use your account to effect transactions that are questionable. So, for instance, let's say you've left the account unattended for say a year or two. He's noticed that okay, this account, nothing is happening on it. So first of all, he assumes either the person is no longer alive, or that the person is out of the jurisdiction, or something has happened. So he's forgotten about the amount of money or anything in it. Sometimes they steal money from other accounts
And put it there.
and come and deposit there because they know that there's no activity on the account. And then small, they move it. Other times, they can use that to launder money for other people. So you'll be there, you receive a call from the Financial Intelligence Center or whatever the authority that look, you have been reported for ABCD. You understand? You have to come and defend yourself as to why ABCD account is being used for this purpose. So the moment you open an account, you have an obligation, you have a duty as a customer of a bank to every now and then check in on the account. If you receive a text message from a bank saying that, oh, you bought something from Tonaton or you bought something from Sika, something, exactly, whatever it is. If you are sure that you did not order such a thing, a dutiful customer of a bank will call the bank or walk into the bank and say, my friend, I've noticed this transaction on my account. I didn't order anything like that. Why is my account statement reflecting A, B, C, and D? For all you know, either your son or your daughter or someone within the bank is using your credentials for the purposes of doing transactions in your name. So it is all, don't just assume, a good number of the times people who do large volume transactions. So you are owner of a business and you are receiving millions upon millions every day or every week. So some of these little things you might not spot it, but the truth is a lot of crime is being committed in your name.